The ball was in his hands with the game on the line and 6 seconds left on the clock. He was wide open on the left wing with a three-point look staring him right in the face. The screen worked perfectly, the defense had not rotated yet, and the shot was right there. He took one dribble instead of pulling the trigger, and that single dribble changed everything. The defense collapsed in a heartbeat. 2 bodies caved on him before he could even think. He picked up his dribble with nowhere to go, and the clock bleeding out around him. He threw it back to a covered teammate near the right wing who was completely off balance. That teammate launched a 27-foot fadeaway prayer into the air with zero rhythm behind it. The buzzer exploded, the ball clanked off iron, and the arena went completely dead silent. A 12-point halftime lead had just been vaporized in front of 20,000 people by one dribble. That one dribble was not just a basketball mistake, it was a window into something much deeper. He admitted afterwards in the press conference that he knew he was open when he caught it. He said he thought he was a little too far and wanted to get one step closer to the basket. That one step closer is what triggered the avalanche that ended the game before he could fire. He also confessed that shooting 8 for 24 from the field may have been sitting in his head. He was 2 for 10 from beyond the arc that night, a 1 in 5 success rate on long bombs. That kind of cold shooting night plants doubt inside the brain of even the most confident scorer. The moment the ball touched his hands in those final seconds, the hesitation was already living inside him. He said there was about 7 seconds left, and he thought that was enough time to make a move. He was technically right about the time and catastrophically wrong about what that time was going to cost. The veteran on the other end of that inbounds pass gave the media a 6-sentence masterclass in pressure. He stood at the podium after the loss and chose every single word with surgical precision and ice in his veins. He opened by saying they had a good opportunity and that the shooter came off the screen completely clean. He confirmed the screen worked, confirmed a look existed, and then drew a very deliberate line in the sand. He told every reporter in the room that they would have to ask his teammate what he saw in that play. That one sentence transferred the entire weight of the moment from his shoulders directly onto someone else's. He did not accuse, he did not attack, he did not raise his voice or point a finger across the room. He simply described what he observed, said the look was good, and let the silence do the rest of the talking. He said the shooter looked off balance, said he lacked rhythm, said whatever the case may be in a flat tone. 5 words, whatever the case may be, and every camera in that building knew exactly what those 5 words meant. The headlines detonated within minutes of that press conference wrapping up across every major sports platform. One outlet called it a blunt message directed at a teammate who had just handed a game back to the opposition. Another outlet ran a headline accusing the veteran of disrespecting the young star in front of the entire basketball world. A third major platform published a side-by-side breakdown of both players' post-game video statements for the world to compare. Social media users immediately split into 2 violent camps with no middle ground and no neutral territory between them. One camp said the veteran threw his younger teammate directly under the bus on live television without blinking once. The other camp said the younger player threw the veteran a live grenade in the form of a 27-foot off-balance fadeaway. The loudest voice in debate television called the shooter's post-game explanation lousy and ripped the entire final sequence apart. The head coach stepped to the podium and confirmed that the play was drawn up specifically for the shooter to fire. The play was designed for him, the look was there for him, and the ball ended up somewhere else entirely. 6 weeks before that catastrophic final play, an agent walked in front of a camera and detonated a bomb inside the locker room. This was not just any agent. This was the most powerful representative in professional basketball dropping a live grenade on a podcast. Around the 36-minute mark of his show, he zeroed in on the Lakers roster and made a recommendation that shook the building. He proposed sending one of the team's most beloved players to Memphis in exchange for a defensive anchor from the Grizzlies. His reasoning was built around timeline architecture, franchise windows, and the gaping defensive hole left after a blockbuster trade months earlier. He argued that the player he wanted to ship out deserved a max contract and would be the star somewhere else. That player is on a 4-year deal worth nearly $54 million and is eligible for a $241 million extension in the summer. The agent framed the trade as a kindness, as an opportunity, as something beneficial for all parties involved in the transaction. The reaction inside the Lakers building was swift, severe, and described by a front office executive as insane and completely out of line. The word tampering drifted through basketball media circles like smoke rising from a fire that nobody could locate or extinguish. The fallout from that podcast did not stay inside boardrooms or front office hallways where these things usually get buried. It spilled out on an NBA court in full view of cameras, fans, arena staff, and the entire basketball-watching public. The night after the podcast dropped, the agent who lit the fuse was sitting courtside at a live game in Los Angeles. The targeted player's own agent walked across the court during the first half and approached him near half court. 2 agents stood on an active NBA floor during a live game and discussed the future of a player sitting on the bench behind them. Reports initially described the exchange as heated before one of the men later tried to soften the description considerably.
He said the two had known each other for 20 years and that the conversation lasted about 5 minutes and ended calmly. He called it amicable, but the optics of two agents squaring up near half-court on national television were absolutely devastating. This was the backstage confrontation that every headline, every thumbnail, and every breathless sports radio segment was referencing for days. Not a hallway ambush, not a locker room screaming match, just two men in suits standing under arena lights with everything on the line. The veteran player was asked about the podcast comments after the game and delivered a response only 22 years of media training can produce. He opened by creating immediate distance, telling reporters that his agent is his own man and does not speak for him. He said his agent's words are not a direct reflection of how he himself feels about the situation or the roster. Then he pivoted to the targeted player and made it personal, telling reporters they talk every single day without exception. He said all anyone has to do is look at them on the bench together to understand the nature of their relationship. He wanted the world to know that the bond between them was not fractured, was not damaged, and was not in question. Then came the sentence he almost certainly wishes he could reach back through time and rephrase before it escaped his mouth. He said the targeted player knows how he feels, and that he hoped the player's camp does not think these are words from him coming through his agent. He meant to complete that sentence with a negation, to say his words do not flow through his agent to the front office. Instead, the slip captured the exact perception he was desperately working to erase, and it echoed across every broadcast for 48 hours straight. The most damaging part of the agent situation was not what the agent actually said about roster construction or trade packages. The most damaging part was the signal it sent through every layer of the organization from the front office down to the locker room floor. The agent had publicly argued that the team as currently constructed around 3-star players cannot win a championship at full health. He said the solution requires moving the youngest and most beloved member of the supporting cast to a rebuilding franchise in the South. Whether the veteran player co-signed that idea or not is functionally impossible to prove given 2 decades of coordinated operation between them. The two had spent 20 years moving in seamless coordination through pressure campaigns, cryptic posts, and carefully timed public statements. The partnership had delivered 4 championships, multiple franchise relocations, a media empire, and a reputation for always being a step ahead. But that same reputation made it impossible for anyone inside or outside the building to believe the agent acted completely alone. The targeted player and his inner circle now had to sit with a very uncomfortable question that had no clean answer available. Did the man sitting 3 seats away on the bench want him traded to Memphis, or was this truly just a podcast opinion? The statistical evidence beneath all of this drama is not a matter of opinion or media spin or hot take television theater. The numbers were pulled, analyzed, and presented on the most watched sports debate show in the country by a credible insider reporter. When the youngest of the 3 stars plays alongside the veteran role player without the all-time grade on the floor, they are excellent. The offense flows, the spacing holds its geometry, and both players create for each other in a way that dismantles opposing defenses. The moment the 41-year-old joins them on the court simultaneously, the entire offensive system begins to suffocate under its own weight. The performance differential between those 2 lineup configurations is not a minor statistical footnote buried in an advanced metric spreadsheet. It is a 20-point swing per 100 possessions, the kind of gap that separates a title contender from a play-in tournament participant. That number is not a small sample fluke, not a random variance artifact, not something that disappears with more reps or better chemistry. It is a structural indictment of a roster built around 3 ball-dominant creators who all generate their best offense the exact same way. When all 3 share the floor, 2 of them are standing on the perimeter watching while one holds the ball and the defense waits. The defensive picture sitting beneath the offensive dysfunction is somehow even more alarming than the offensive numbers already are. The youngest star has accumulated 13 technical fouls through 44 games this season at the highest rate of his entire professional career. His persistent habit of arguing with referees after made shots, missed calls, and even during dead balls has become a competitive liability. The team's own broadcasters called it out live on air during games, noting that he was complaining again while his team ran back on defense. When he stands at half-court pleading with an official, the opposing team pushes the ball forward into a 4-on-5 advantage instantly. Skilled teams at the top of the league convert those transition advantages into easy points without needing a second thought or a drawn-up play. The criticism from major media voices has been unrelenting, with one calling the behavior completely out of control and unwatchable on a consistent basis. Another predicted that when a statue of this player is eventually erected outside an arena, it will depict him arguing with an official. He has accumulated 73 technical fouls over the last 5 seasons alone, the highest total of any player in the entire league during that stretch. Those technicals are not just personal branding quirks, they are points surrendered and defensive breakdowns gifted to opponents on a near-nightly basis. The broader defensive profile of this 3-man lineup creates a picture that championship-level opponents will study and exploit with mercy. The 41-year-old simply cannot guard perimeter players the way he could even 3 seasons ago, and everyone in the league knows it. The veteran role player is a willing and intelligent defender, but is consistently undersized and overmatched against elite wings and powerful forwards. The youngest star's defensive effort has been scrutinized for years, with critics pointing to diminished lateral movement and recurring lapses in concentration. When you combine all 3 of these defensive profiles into a single lineup, you create a vacancy that elite offenses will punish relentlessly. The team in Oklahoma City with their collective defensive swarming system will attack that vacancy from every angle in a playoff series. The team in San Antonio with their 7-foot paint eraser at the center of everything they do will feast on that defensive void. The team in Denver with their system and their unstoppable center and their depth will run sophisticated actions directly into that weakness on repeat. The conversation in basketball circles had already shifted from whether this team can compete for a title to whether they survive the first round. That is the trajectory of a franchise whose three most talented players occupy the same offensive real estate and offer no coherent defensive identity. The organizational backdrop behind all of this drama involves a trade that reshaped the franchise roughly 1 year before any of this became visible. A blockbuster trade sent the previous franchise cornerstone to Dallas in exchange for the 26-year-old star who now runs the office in Los Angeles. Analysts across the basketball media landscape overwhelmingly graded that deal as a significant steal for the team that received the younger player. The general manager signed the new franchise centerpiece to a 3-year extension worth nearly $165 million in the summer following the trade. The organizational pivot was never designed for the current moment, it was designed for the 5 years that come after the current moment ends. The 41-year-old publicly acknowledged this reality after a January win, calling it his younger teammates' team and saying everyone was rallying around him. He even used a football analogy in a national interview, describing himself as a wide receiver running routes for a quarterback who holds the ball. That language was deliberate, designed to show deference, to position himself as the complementary piece who no longer needs to dominate possessions. But in a 1-point loss with a playoff spot on the line, the quarterback had the ball